Hello, everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel called Living in Hayward, Wisconsin, where we talk about all things real estate related and also just about living in Hayward. I'm Audrey Miller. I'm the broker owner of Northwest Wisconsin Realty Team. Our office is located right on Main Street in Hayward. And I got so long-winded in my video talking about the different sub areas for lakefront property within the geographic area that I cover in and around Hayward that I'm splitting it into two different videos. So if you're watching the second one first somehow and you want to see part one is going to cover Stone Lake, Hayward, the area east of Hayward and the quiet lakes that are out that way, and the cable areas in the first video. And then the second video is going to cover some of the other outlying areas such as Birchwood, Trigo and Minong, Winter, and Spooner areas. So that's how I'm splitting this up, because the video was getting to be really, really long. So sometimes I've been accused of being a little bit long-winded. Anyway, so this is part two about the lakefront sub areas within the geographic area that I cover as a real estate broker here in Northwest Wisconsin. So I hope you enjoy this information. Okay, and then let's head from Cable to the south and to the west, where we get into the Trigo and Minong areas. Both of those towns are not much to see. There's not a whole lot to do in those towns. Minong does have a few restaurants, and they have a nice grocery store there. You can also buy booze there. There's a gas station, but the towns themselves are kind of map dot towns. There's not a whole lot of activities there. But if you look at this map to the west of Trigo and Minong, there are a slew of lakes. There's a lot of really clean, clear lakes in that area. None of them are bigger than about 1,500 acres, but there's so many. I mean, just look at all of these lakes clustered together in this area. So it's a really great place to purchase a lake home if you like being a little bit further from amenities, but closer to the Twin Cities. So you can come up Highway 53 and then go to your west, and that's where all these lakes are located, and it's a shorter distance from the Twin Cities and kind of easier access than some of the properties over towards Hayward or to the east of Hayward especially. There is a difference in the terrain and the types of trees. So I call it sand country over by Minong especially, and somewhat into the Trigo area. So there's a lot of pines and scrub oaks in the Minong area especially, and not quite as much of the bigger forest. So if you like pines, it's an awesome area. If you're looking for more of the typical deciduous forest that you might see over towards Hayward, that's a little more iffy, especially depending which lake and what area you're in the Minong area especially. But really great area. You would go to Spooner if you were looking for grocery store restaurants. And again, there's always restaurants and bars scattered throughout on these lakes. There's resorts. You probably don't have to drive more than 10 minutes from almost anywhere in the whole region I cover to get to at least one or two bars and restaurants. From my house, which I'm out by the Chippewa Flowage, I can go to 15 bars and restaurants in 10 minutes from my house, which is just insane. So there's lots and lots of little places that are really nice little establishments scattered throughout. So you're never going to be too far from food, but for the other amenities like grocery shopping, you'll be just a little bit further. And then let's talk about the Birchwood area. So that's going to be south of Stone Lake. The Birchwood area, I would say, starts in Long Lake, which is one of the premier lakes in the area. But then you also have Chautauqua, you have Red Cedar, you've got a couple of other lakes that are attached to Red Cedar. There's Hemlock Lake and Birch Lake. So there's a pretty good grouping of lakes in the Birchwood area. And there you're closer to the Rice Lake town, which is the biggest town within the region that I cover, or adjacent to the region that I cover. So that's the Birchwood area. That area tends to be kind of a little less expensive than Hayward, but it just depends which lake you're on. Long Lake is a tier 1 lake in my opinion, so that does garner higher prices. And Red Cedar is a beautiful clear lake, but not quite as spendy as Long or Grindstone or Lacouteret. I talk about these lakes like they're friends of mine. I'm so familiar with them, and I've done so much showing on these lakes and selling of properties and spending time on some of these lakes as well. And as always, there's a resource if you want to look up more lake information. I've mentioned this in a video before, but you just Google DNR and then you put the lake name, and then I would put the county, whether it's Sawyer, Washburn, Barron County, because we have a lot of lakes that are named the same in Wisconsin. So, but put in DNR, the lake name, the county that it's in, and then you can get a lot of information about the depths, what the bottom of the lake is made up of, if there's boat landings or not. Some water clarity readings are on there. There's a ton of information on the DNR sites for these different lakes. So that's always a fun resource to check out. And then there is the Spooner area. In Spooner area, there is Spooner Lake itself, and then there's smaller lakes. But I'm just going to be honest, in my opinion, in the Spooner area, the lakes do not have as much water clarity. There's a lot of agricultural things going on around Spooner more than any of the other areas that I cover. And I think that may influence, maybe runoffs from fields or fertilizers. I find that the Spooner area does not have as many deep lakes with the kind of water clarity that you have in a lot of these other areas that I mentioned. Again, someone can feel free to contradict me, but of the areas that I cover, I would say to me, the Spooner area is probably the least desirable in terms of lakes. There's also not as many there. There are a few to the west and kind of north of Spooner. Mackenzie Chain, I will make an exception for, but that's kind of north of Spooner quite a ways and almost more in the Trigo area. So the Spooner area itself, probably the least desirable lake area, but there is still quite a few lakes in that area. Like I said, Spooner Lake being the largest. And then the last area I'll talk about is the Winter Wisconsin area. And I'm going to put the Chippewa flowage in with this because the Chippewa flowage is by far the biggest lake in our area. It's over 15,000 acres. It's my favorite lake. It's the one that I live on, where I do most of my boating. That's east of Hayward, 20 to 30 minutes. So it's getting to be a little bit longer drive from the Twin Cities. It's a flowage, so it doesn't have the water clarity, but I think that it makes up for it in terms of the size, the number of bars and restaurants that are on the lake and all of that. And then if you just keep going east further on Highway B towards Winter and you turn north, instead of going south to Winter, you turn north. That's where most of the lakes in the Winter area are actually located. So they're largely to the north of Winter. These lakes are primarily 200 to 400 acre lakes, but I think this area is a bit underrated. It's a little bit further from the Twin Cities. You're probably pushing that 315 mark, but the prices in Winter are a lot more affordable still, I think, because of the distance from the Twin Cities. And also there's not a ton of amenities. But again, all of these areas that I mentioned have all of the outdoor activities such as ATVing, snowmobiling, hiking, not the biking trails so much outside of the Cable Sealy area or the ski trails, but all of these other activities, the fishing, the boating, can be found anywhere. And again, there's going to be bars and restaurants. There's a few less in the Winter area. I would say the Winter area is the most remote in terms of amenities of any of the areas that I cover. So that could be another reason why it doesn't attract everyone. But I think that area is a bit of a hidden gem. There's a lot of nice little lakes there. And then there's Lake Winter itself, which is very near to the town of Winter. And that one is between 600 and 700 acres. So that's a little bit larger lake and does garner the highest prices within the Winter region. So there's lots and lots of options. You'd be amazed if you zoom in on the map how many lakes that look like a little dot, but they're 200, 300, 400 acre lakes, and they're beautiful. You can still enjoy all of the full recreational activities on these lakes. They're big enough to water ski or to tube. You can pontoon, you can fish, you can go out and enjoy the sunset, you can swim. So we just have a huge abundance of lakes in our area, and it's one of the reasons I love selling real estate in this area is because it is so special and unique in my opinion, and has so many choices of these little sub areas within our area and so many choices of lakes depending on what your criteria is. I usually ask buyers when I start working with them, do you have a lake size minimum? What about the geographic area, kind of within the area that I cover? And then what their price point is and where is the convergence of those pieces of information as to which of these areas might be the best fit for them. So I hope you found this helpful. Maybe it'll point you in a direction if you're just starting your search or you're not super familiar with the Hayward area. As always, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to help. Please like, comment, share my channel. I would appreciate it very much. And thanks for taking the time to listen to this information about the Northern Wisconsin lakes.